Hi, buenas noches, everyone. Please excuse my dog barking in the background. My name is Laura Molinar, and I am the co-founder, co-director of the South Texas-based collective Sueños Sin Fronteras de Texas. I am so thrilled to be joining this year's Repro Film Fest because of the deep connection and solidarity that I share with so many of the film's subjects, the films that were featured in this amazing festival, particularly with the characters in the On the Divide documentary. Whether you're returning or are joining us for the first time this year, we're so grateful that you're with us. Through knowledge, intention, and action, Repro is the only film festival in the world dedicated to reproductive justice, advocating for inclusive reproductive health care, justice, and bodily autonomy for all folks, cis, trans, and non-binary alike. When you purchase tickets and donate to Repro, you have become an active participant of change, as all net ticket sales support our three beneficiary organizations, the Black Women's Health Imperative, the Lilith Fund, and No More Secrets. Get all of the info at reprofilmfest.com. We'd like to thank all of our sponsors, including Bloomberg Philanthropies, Stover Lafer Foundation, and the Lori M. Tisch Illumination Fund, and the Shepherd Foundation. Welcome, everyone, to our call to action conversation and Q&A for the feature documentary On the Divide. Today, we'll be talking about the contentious issues that surround the last abortion clinic on the U.S.-Mexico border and what reproductive justice actually means to the Latinx, the Tejanex, and immigrant communities living here. It is my honor to introduce our special guest for the conversation today. We have Maya Cueva, the co-director of On the Divide, as well as the director of the Repro short film Ale Libre. We have Leah Gallant, co-director and cinematographer of On the Divide. We have Denise Gonzalez, film subject and part of the South Texans for Reproductive Justice. And we have Melissa Arjona, president of South Texans for Reproductive Justice. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so I want to start by saying that it's an honor. Like I said, it's an honor to be here with you all this evening, to be a moderator for this conversation. And as a Tejana who was raised Catholic and also a survivor of interpersonal violence. And growing up in South Texas, I really relate so deeply with the characters portrayed in this documentary. And, so often our Tejano, Tejanex community and our stories are often overlooked and lumped into the overall Latinx narrative. And I just want to share that although many of us do identify as Latinx, we as Tejanos, Tejanas, Tejanequis experience many intersectional issues that are very unique to our geographic location, especially here in South Texas. So I really just deeply appreciate this film and just everything that it stands for. And yeah, I'll start with the first question for Maya and Leah. So the first question that I have for you all is, what inspired you all to tell this story and to create this film?
Well, first off, thank you so much, Laura. I love that this is full circle because many people don't know that Laura and I actually met while we were working on the Divide, during a protest in 2017. There's a huge protest that happens at the clinic, and Lauda was defending the clinic. So it's just so amazing to, have you be the one moderating this. So yeah, Leah and I actually both met while we were at Ithaca College. And it was during that time that we were actually in a class together where we had to make a short film. And that's when we came across an article that was about a traveling abortion doctor who travels from New Mexico to Texas. And we never knew that a profession like that needed to exist until we actually made our way to Texas and saw that clinics were closing. Access was really dire there. And it was actually during the production of The Provider, which is the short we made about this traveling doctor, that we made our way to the border and saw that there was only one abortion clinic there. And so from there, that was actually in 2014. We ended up going back to the clinic in 2016, and that's how On the Divide really started. And along the way, we were able to meet Ray, who's the security guard outside of the clinic, and Denise, who's here with us, who was the clinic escort at the time at Women's Health Clinic. We got to meet Mel, who was also a clinic escort and part of South Texas Reproductive Justice. And then we also met Mercedes too, who you see in the film as who was a protester at the clinic. So that's really how it got started. I don't know, Leah, if you want to add anything.
Oh, I think just to add is I think the idea of On the Divide was born out of just a conversation we were having on the road about thinking of more of a complicated and nuanced story that, often we see this issue as dichotomous and black and white, pro-life, pro-choice, but we had met someone who was a very religious person and was also a clinic escort at the abortion clinic that we were filming at. And so I think we were really just interested in finding more stories like that. And that was how On the Divide came to be, a character-driven film.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that context. Yeah, and I think one of the amazing things is that I'm currently in San Antonio, and San Antonio is definitely not the Valley. It's about 3.5 hours away. Still considered South Texas, but I'm so excited. I was so excited to meet Leah and Maya, to meet you all. And, when we were doing the protests in McAllen, I felt like there is no, this is the place that a documentary like this needs to be made in. And especially, the reverence that you all give to our Tejano community, our South Texas communities. And so, yeah, one of the questions that, another question that I have for you all is, when you all, dreamt up this idea of for the documentary and were creating it, what did you all hope to convey to the audience, to an audience that may have limited knowledge around, some of the cultural, religious, political terrain in Texas, specifically in the Rio Grande Valley? What did you all, hope to convey to the audience?
Yeah, that's a great question. What's really important to know about McAllen and the Rio Grande Valley in general, again, that this is the last abortion clinic in this whole area. So not only, is access really dire, but also there's many intersections that are happening here that a lot of people don't know about, right? So if this clinic were to close, the closest clinic would be 250 miles away. And people who are undocumented would, have to travel there, but they would have to go through border checkpoints along the way in order to get there. So they're risking deportation, right? So there's so many intersections between immigration and lack of access to reproductive rights and reproductive access here. But really what also we wanted to show is that this is not a black and white issue, right? I think what often happens is when we see topics around abortion, we're seeing white women be centered, and we're seeing this very much a debate where it's just us versus them type of situation. But there's many people who, might fit in the middle, right? Or might want to fight for a person's right to choose, but ultimately wouldn't want to have an abortion themselves, or might be raised religious, right? In a very like Catholic Latinx household in McAllen or in another area in the Rio Grande Valley, and not know like how important choice is, right? Because they grew up in this household and they were told certain things their whole life, right? So we just really wanted to be able to center the stories that you would never really see, right? And really center people who might be, not really represented in this fight, like someone like Ray, who is a 67-year-old Latino man who could be like our tios, right? He could be an uncle to us. And he has a stake in this issue. And so we just really wanted to highlight voices like that, and as well as Denise too, because Denise has such an incredible story that I know she can talk about more. And also Mercedes, who, for people who have seen the film, goes through a very complicated transformation, right? So ultimately, what we were really trying to show in the end is that, what does choice mean when you don't have many options, right? And why is choice necessary for survival? So that's what we hope that people come away with after seeing this film, especially being able to, be in the lives of these three incredible people.
That's incredible, Maya. Thank you so much for sharing this background information about the characters. And yeah, I mean, seeing Ray in this documentary reminds me of like my grandpa, and reminds me of my tío, and like I'm like, oh yeah, and my dad too, who's also a veteran, but who is very like vocal and progressive, and is like, I served my country because, I don't believe in this, like, I don't believe in this, like I don't believe in the oppression that is happening, and this is why I fought for my country, because I, like, I really like felt that deep connection, like with his character, because that's a presence in our lives that, is so profound, like I said, through my dad, through my tío. And I'm curious too, like, one of the main characters, Mercedes, how did you all meet her? And, why did you all like focus, why did you all choose for her to be one of the characters of the film?
Yeah. Well, actually, Maya had mentioned she was doing a radio story with Laura, and that was part of the story. Was Mercedes was in this story that went to NPR, following really on both ends of the spectrum, people who had quote unquote switched sides from their views on abortion. And so when Maya made this radio piece, and we got to know her more, and really decided that she would be a really compelling person to be part of this project. So we ended up asking her, not knowing at the time, of course, like, as if you have seen this film, for those of you who watched it, there is, as Maya mentioned, a very dramatic transformation that does occur, but we did not know that at the time. So we were really just looking for someone from the pro-life perspective, and just to understand that, and where everything is rooted in that, in that world. And so that was why we decided to choose Mercedes and follow her. And just because I think also we wanted to see a film that we had not seen before. In many ways, there are a lot of films out there that are vital and important films that are, majority talking head and expert footage, that are following laws and legislation. But we were more interested to tell a character-driven verite film in which people's lives unfolded in real time. And so our reference films are those that are, intimate and very sensitively, covering pretty intense themes and topics. And what we wanted to do was be able to follow everyone in this way that, you know, was authentic, and also where they felt safe to tell their stories. And this is something that, again, we had not seen be done before in a film, a documentary about abortion in this way, where we wanted to spend more of our time outside of the clinic walls, as opposed to staying in with doctors and patients. Because, of course, this issue reverberates outside of the clinic into the communities, and that's what we were trying to show.
And I think I'll just add to that too, that like Leah mentioned too, we had no idea that, you know, Mercedes would want to seek birth control, would, you know, eventually kind of have this revelation. But after that happened, we really, you know, felt that that was really important to show how that change can happen. And also we feel like her story really shows like why choice is necessary, right? Like the evolution that happens to her really, again, proves that like, it's important to have resources. It's important to have these choices available. So in the end, we really felt like having, you know, showing her where she started out in the church community, and her being able to come to that realization on her own through the resources she was able to access, really, you know, shed a light to this issue in like a lot of different ways, and why reproductive access is really important.
Thank you so much for that, Maya and Leah. Yeah, and Leah, you know, I appreciate you like touching on the story that you know, Maya had done for youth radio, because she had interviewed me in that story, and then she also interviewed Mercedes. And so I remember, like, you know, several years ago listening to the story for the first time, and just, you know, it was really interesting because, you know, I talked about kind of my, you know, journey with my Catholic faith and kind of going away from the church, and, you know, my abortion story and everything like that. And then, you know, like hearing Mercedes's experience was really profound. And seeing her in this documentary, it just, everything came full circle, you know, and just some of the things that, you know, she talked about too, like some of the reasons why, and I hope I'm not giving away like too much of the documentary, but, you know, some of the things that she had said about, you know, wanting to feel, you know, accepted and loved by the church, you know, like that, oof, that like really hit me hard, because that's how I felt too, you know, when I was like, you know, a youth and trying to explore my faith, trying to figure out all of the nuances that came with being an adolescent, but also like, you know, yeah, the shame that my faith and religion like brought upon me. And so I really appreciate seeing her evolution in this film. And so, yeah, I want to kind of shift the conversation a little bit to Denise and Melissa. It's an honor to be here with you all. I really respect the work that you all do. And, you know, it was amazing seeing Denise's character as well in this film. And just like the solidarity that, you know, she had, it was so inspiring. And one of the things that you said, Denise, that really resonated with me in the film was when you were talking about your community, talking about the Rio Grande Valley, and saying, you know, it's not here or there, it's our own. And I felt like that was just like one of the most powerful, it was just one of the most powerful moments of the documentary. And so I was just wondering if you know, you would feel comfortable kind of expanding more on what you meant by that, to some of the audience members that aren't too familiar with how things are in South Texas, particularly in places like McAllen, and other cities in the Valley.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the neither here nor there is a common mentality, you know, that us RGV people have. We are primarily a Latinx community. Most of us do have our origins in Mexico as compared to like further down in Latin America. So we do share that because we are the majority people here. So we are, we are brown people. We're not white. And that part of that becomes very apparent traveling outside of the Valley. Here, you kind of don't think about that a lot, which is something that, we do need to be called out on a lot. We do have our own racism issues here, but we don't really think about what happens to us outside of the Valley because here we're kind of in our own little bubble and we make this our home and we're the majority. We are very much reminded of that, even just traveling to Corpus, for example, which is like 2 hours away. And we're reminded by the media, we're reminded by our own governor how much we're not part of, the rest of the nation, because we are brown and there is that systemic racism that, is shared among all people of color. Of course, we don't have it as bad, as African Americans, as Black people, as in the indigenous people, but we do have our share of that. And we are very much reminded of that. But at the same time, by our relatives that are still in Mexico, when we do travel to Mexico, we're very much reminded also that we're not part of Mexico. It's kind of like we've been outcasted from them, or there's sort of like an underlying sense of betrayal. Some of it, they're happy that we're here, but there's also that disconnect. We've lost a lot of our origins. So some of the traditions have changed. The language has changed. The Tex-Mex speak that we have, the Spanish that I have does not at all match the Spanish in Mexico. My English does not at all match the rest of the nation's English. So we're kind of we made our own little home where we ourselves do belong and we can be connected to each other when all around us it feels like there's a disconnect. And we made up this system of belonging and this community where, we help each other out and we're always looking out for our own communities because, truth to tell, especially by, the rest of this nation in this political era, we are separate. In a lot of the political conversations, we don't come up. Our viewpoint isn't there. We're not considered, and that's something that Maya and Leah were able to do with the film is kind of give an insight into how these laws affect us here personally.
Thank you so much for that, Denise. I can't like exactly relate with y'all, not being from the Valley, being from San Antonio, but, just like that, everything that you said really resonated with me. And, it's like, I've had experiences going to different parts of the country and people asking me, well, you're not Mexican. You're like, I have literally been told that I'm a fake Mexican because, of my identity as a Tejana. And they're like, oh, because I eat flour tortillas and I like put cheese on my tacos and stuff, like grated cheddar cheese, different things like that, that like really, just kind of growing up, like not really feeling like, you're Mexican or you're American. And it's really like, up to us living in these communities to really bring awareness to the nuances of our experiences as Tejanos. And, but, with that said, there's a lot of racism too. And, just really, really toxic mindsets that still permeate, our culture because of the oppression and the, systemic, white supremacy that is, that has, contributed to the erasure of our identities and our histories and stuff that we're still fighting for. And it's still manifesting, in our fight for reproductive justice, to this day. And so, I really appreciate and admire the work that you all are currently doing right now, with South Texans for Reproductive Justice. If Melissa or Denise, if you all could share a little bit about your work right now, just a little bit of information about your organization and what the work looks like, right now.
So right now, our main project, we've been doing Plan B distribution, and we got a big grant for that, and we mail it out. So it's been going really well. We've also basically when things come up, like we have the SB8, which is I'm sure we'll talk about that in a while. But recently, Edinburgh, Texas, which is here in the Valley, tried to pass like a local version of that, and so we really organized behind the scenes, showed up to the city council meeting and kind of like shot that down. We stopped it. So yeah, we kind of play it by ear. The main focus right now is Plan B, because that is like a second full-time job sometimes. But yeah, we just kind of, whenever something comes up and we're needed, we kind of just spring into action.
That's amazing. And yeah, we were closely following our organization, and all of us here in San Antonio were closely following, everything that was happening in Edinburgh. And, yeah, I just, my reverence to you all, it's never ending, right? Sometimes, but it's like small triumphs and wins, and like, being able to like, get Plan B to folks, like that's radical and revolutionary. And that is, something to be celebrated. And so I really appreciate the work that you all are doing. And on behalf of our organization, Sueños, like you let us know what you need, what kind of support you need. We're always here to uplift you all and support y'all in any way.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and so you had mentioned SB8, and so I want to acknowledge this law. So as many of you all know, the new Texas law SB8 was passed by our Texas government, and it could have devastating consequences for abortion access and advocates across our state. And the law, SB8, which is actually set to go into effect on September 1st, would essentially ban abortions as early as 6 weeks into pregnancy, where, I was 6 weeks along when I had my abortion. I didn't even know that I was pregnant. Many folks don't know that they're pregnant by 6 weeks. And, what's particularly heinous about this law, compared to the other, fetal heartbeat bills, enacted by other conservative states, what's particularly heinous about this law is that it enables citizens, even those outside of Texas, to sue clinics, providers, or any community members who offer support to a person seeking abortion care. So, given what's happening right now, and, Melissa, you had briefly touched on it, just with SB8, and what's happening right now, in our state, in our communities, what like in addition to, getting Plan B and everything, like what do you all want to share with the community of, kind of like where should, what are, the South Texans for Reproductive Justice and other like sister organizations, what are some of the things that you all, are kind of focusing on or wanting to convey to the community? Hey, this is what we need support with. This is how you can get involved. What would you like to share to our audience members who may not be familiar with you all's work or some of the other organizations in the Valley that are fighting for reproductive justice?
Well, the law, it's scary pretty much no matter where you are, but it's really scary for the Valley because of the border checkpoints, right? And so people will have even less time. Let's say they're right before the 6 week mark or whatever. It doesn't leave them that much time to like travel out of state or like upstate if they need to get an abortion. And I think the main, I guess, groups that need support right now are like the local organizations, because they're the ones who are really like carrying all the weight. They're really scrambling to find funds. I know abortion funds are just like freaking out right now because the costs are going to skyrocket, especially if they have to travel out of state once, you know, the law takes effect. And so, yeah, with us, we've been trying to like really push Plan B so that people are prepared in case they need it. When we send it out, we give out 2 doses. And so one for you, one for a friend, or 2 for the future in case you need it or whatever. But yeah, I think education is a really big key. And so if you do see, you know, your local organizations, you know, share their posts and, you know, just try to spread the word. Funds, of course, are like a really big one. Like I said, the abortion funds are really, really hurting for money right now, pretty much across the state. And so, yeah, I think that's the main, just like support like local orgs, because they're the ones who are really carrying a lot of it right now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Melissa. And, you know, I know that sometimes in this work, you know, it's really hard not to focus on like just all of the like blasphemous things that are happening, you know, and being enacted by our government, you know, and in the world, you know, and so, you know, one of my questions that I really, you know, want to know from you, Denise and Melissa, like, you know, are there like any like joys and triumphs that you all have experienced like in your work, not necessarily in your work, but, you know, maybe like personally, that empower and motivate you all to continue doing this work? Kind of like, you know, what brings you all joy and what helps to really empower you all as, you know, as you wake up each day and you face all of this nonsense sometimes, you know, what are some of the things that really motivate you and inspire you all to continue doing this work?
I can answer that a little bit, and then I'll hand it off over to Mel. But for us, you know, back when we were escorting, it really kept us going, knowing the difference that we made for the patients, that we really were there for them, you know, at this very troubling time, at a time that didn't have to be troubling and shouldn't be troubling. There really is absolutely zero shame in seeking abortion care, but because of the stigma that is faced in this community and because of the protesters, it, you know, could very quickly become something very traumatic and unsafe. I mean, generally unsafe with a lot of the things that the protesters would pull. And the fact that we were there to absorb a lot of that nastiness and a lot of that hate and a lot of that threats meant that we protected the patients, and we could see the difference that it would make. They would come back and tell us the difference that it would make. And so that really kept us going. Now, especially even after that, we still do, you know, as much passing out information, you know, regarding abortion and abortion education. We do the Plan B, we do the free condoms, we do a lot of, you know, just overall education and services that we still provide. Like Melissa said, we did manage to shut down what Edinburgh was trying to do here. There are other events also that we have shut down from the other side. So we continue our work and just, you know, seeing the fruits of our labor, so to speak, you know, that our work does have effects. We have people constantly messaging us right now about the Plan B, you know, really thanking us for the difference that it has made, because Plan B is expensive. You go to Walgreens right now, it's $50. And this is a very, you know, low socioeconomic area. We do struggle a lot here. Just, you know, the pay rates aren't the pay rates that you find in other areas of the country. You know, we still have rent to make, we still have mortgages to pay, we still have food to get. And so, you know, providing this service that is very, very much needed is what keeps us going, because we can see the effects of it. We can see the relief on people's faces. We know the difference it's making in their lives. We know the ramifications of it. And just knowing that is, you know, makes it all worth it. We just get up and do it again. Despite what Texas is doing what it has always done, you know, Texas will do what Texas will do, but so will we. And we haven't gone anywhere. We'll always be here. And so, you know, we keep going like we always will.
That's badass. That's, I don't know if I'm supposed to cuss on here, but that is really amazing. Yeah, Melissa, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. Well, we're gonna be riding high off the Edinburgh win for like forever because it was awesome. It was a lot of work, and it was a surprising twist too that we actually won because we didn't think we would. So that was great. But yeah, the Plan B distribution, usually we mail it out, but sometimes we have been having like small pop-up events, like at Pride, we have a couple events, and just like locally, if we're asked a table, we will go and distribute it in person. And just seeing people like almost break down in tears where they're like, what, there's an organization actually doing this? You know, they get really like emotional about it because they didn't know that, you know, something like that was here in the Valley. And so that feels really good. And it feels good to see like people posting like on Instagram or whatever, like, look at my goodies. And, you know, they look what we can get. And here's the link so you can get yours too. And, you know, that's a really good feeling for us.
That's incredible. And I also just want to share too that, you know, I had first heard about your organization and really became more familiar with your work when you know, I had met Maya, you know, several years ago during that protest when we were helping to, you know, protect the clinic. And the work that you all were doing was so inspirational. And, you know, I feel like this, you know, what you all are doing, like this movement is continuing, you know, and really, like, I have to say, inspired, you know, myself and my other colleagues to, you know, do Sueños, you know, start our organization too. And just that kind of just power in the work of, you know, it being a collective movement, and it's inspiring and motivating like other folks in their communities to, you know, kind of step up and you know, and do this. Like that's really incredible. And so I really appreciate you all sharing that and just doing this work. Yeah. So I wanted to, I know that we're getting some questions from the audience. So if it's cool with you all, I'd like to, you know, ask some of these questions. So one of the questions from our audience is Ray still working at the clinic, or did he retire?
Yeah, so if you've seen the film, you see that by the end, he does have to leave the clinic. And he's still no longer working at the clinic right now. He's right now really trying to take care of his sister, and also trying to make sure that his health is in order. He did get COVID and luckily got over that. So we're really happy about that. But yeah, Ray is really just trying to, you know, should make sure that he's healthy. So we've been checking in on him as often as we can. But yeah, he does not work at the clinic anymore. I don't know if Denise or Mel want to add any updates that you've heard from Ray. I know he calls all of us.
Yeah, no, Ray is doing good. Thankfully, he's good, enjoying life as much as he possibly can. COVID did, you know, as Maya mentioned, he did get COVID, and, you know, COVID did affect him in some ways, but so far he's doing good. I'm glad at where he is right now.
Still bothering us to go fishing.
Yeah, very much so. But we'll be there once, you know. Well, no, I don't know if whatever happens in the future with COVID, but maybe we'll get a more effective vaccine or something. Or less variants. One day we very much plan to. We do all plan to go fishing with him still.
That sounds great. Yeah, I know. One day, like right, one day soon. You know, just like hoping for that day to come soon when we can, you know, I think, you know, like everyone says, it's never going to be normal, but, you know, having the time where we can do these things again, like fishing with Ray, and you know, yeah. So thank you so much for sharing that. We have another question here from our audience. I apologize, my dog. She's had a long day. So the next question is, for those of you who have struggled with the religious side of abortion, do you feel that's a genuine defense for SB 8, or is the law really more about control? Whoever wants to answer that.
I mean, I can try to take a crack at it, although, disclaimer, I am not at all religious and haven't been for quite a few years. But I did grow up very, very Catholic. I was once upon a time very involved with the church. But no, I don't believe anything about anything having to do with abortion has to do with life. I know that there are thousands upon millions of people probably that will disagree with me. But no, because the other side has never acted that it's about life. They've always acted that it's about control. You look at the statistics of pro-life states, right? You know, they call themselves pro-life. They're not. They're just anti-choice. They have the highest maternal mortality rates. They have the highest newborn death rates. They have, you know, the highest rates of teenage pregnancy. They have a lot of documented sexual assault cases that go uninvestigated. They have really high rates of foster kids, you know, that cannot be placed into homes. There's just a lot of things that you will see associated with, you know, the pro-life state that are not pro-life. It has never been about life. It hasn't been. And then if you want to quote the Bible, I can also quote to you about the bitter waters. I can quote to you, you know, how even in Genesis, you know, talks about life. It's when the breath of life, when the breath of God enters, that is when life begins. You know, no, it's hands down. It has never been about life. It is about control. It is about controlling people, controlling their choices, restricting access to things to fit a certain agenda, but it is not about life. It is not about healthcare for them. It isn't about anything but control.
And also, like, looking at local media, like the comments, whenever abortion comes up, they're like, no, abortion is bad. And, you know, but even with SB 8 and with the Edinburgh City Council, people were like genuinely shocked at how far the law went. So even if they were pro-life, like, they were shocked and they think it went too far. So yeah, I do think the Texas government is just, you know, really crappy. It's just like a power move right now that they think they're in the position to be able to, you know, push these things forward.
Thank you all for sharing that. And I am with you all. I completely agree. It's never about religion, right? You know, like these people don't care about, you know, life. It is about control. And, you know, just down to the just the laws in place, the process in place to have an abortion. You know, it's like, yeah, no, you don't care about anyone. You know, it is all about their agenda and that control that they want to have on our bodily autonomy. So yeah, we'll go into the next question here from another audience member. So this one is for the filmmakers, for Maya and Leah. The question is, when did you start making the film? And did you know when you started that you would be releasing it at such an extreme moment in time for the pro-choice movement?
Yeah, so we, as Maya mentioned earlier, we started this in 2014 in terms of when we knew about Melissa, Denise, and Melissa's sister, Denny, who's also part of STRJ, and the organizers in the Valley. That's when we were tapped into what was going on in the country. We were reading these articles for the first time, and that was sort of what inspired Maya and I, who were at the time 20, 21, never knew that this was happening. We thought after Roe v. Wade, we were good. That's to the extent of what a New York and a California, I guess, atmosphere was for us where we grew up. And so when we were finding this out in the news, which is also, I think, when social media was starting to amp up, people were getting more information from social media, we were shocked and did not know this was happening. So I think once we started doing our research with not only what was happening with the folks in our films, but just in general and the movement in general and getting that history, we were not alive before Roe v. Wade. So we really needed to read up on everything that was going on, and definitely just utterly shocked with like how many laws and legislation has been passed just even since the early 2000s. And it does seem like everything has been pretty calculated for a very long time. And just this year alone, the statistic is that over 90 bills in Texas alone have been passed in the legislature that are anti-abortion. And so that was, I think, the Guttmacher Institute. And so that just goes to show in just 1 year how many laws are being passed. And I think the idea is, chipping away and chipping away and chipping away. But yeah, we really had no idea how intense things would get. And I do want to point out a scene in the film that I think does kind of summarize what's going on with when Mercedes goes to the Pregnancy Crisis Center for the second time, and it's election day, and she's being encouraged to vote Republican, and so just goes to show how the issue is so tied to a political party in that extreme way, and that is again something that I think has gotten more intense that we've noticed since we started filming in 2014. Unfortunately. And it is really hard to keep track of all the laws and legislation because there's so much and so many of them, unfortunately, even with the wins at Supreme Court level. So I'm not sure if Mel, Denise, or Maya, if you wanted to add anything to that.
No, I think you said it best. I mean, I don't think we could have predicted how, relevant this film would still be 7 years later. But it is, and fortunately, it's going to continue to be this relevant. So it's just like Mel was saying, so important right now for people to get involved with local orgs, donate, give back as much as you can, specifically to South Texas Reproductive Justice, who are really on the ground. And Mel mentioned a lot of other funds as well, abortion funds that really need help right now, because unfortunately, the issue around abortion access and being very limited is not going away. So it's unfortunately getting worse. So we really didn't know that setting out to in making this film. And also Laura's org. Sueños Sin Fronteras, which is such an incredible organ working with migrants, and I know Laura, you could share more, but also offering reproductive health care to migrants. So that's another org that's really important. But yeah, I think that we couldn't have predicted this, but also I think in many ways, like we've just learned so much from Denise and Mal and Ray and Mercedes and Denny, who's also part of South Texans Reproductive Justice. And we always joke that Mal says that like, you couldn't get rid of us. We kept showing up. But really think that what this film hopefully does is really show how many, years that we've been really dealing with this, and how they have been dealing with this on the ground as organizers.
Thank you so much, Maya and Leah. Yeah, I think we have a few more minutes for some other questions that have come in. The next question from the audience is, what will happen to Whole Women's Health after September 1st? And I know that, like the fight continues, right? Like as Denise, as you said, it's like Texas will be doing what they do, and we'll be doing what we do. So yeah, can you all expand on anything, related to, what it looks like for Whole Women's Health specifically after September 1st?
I'm pretty sure they're going to be open until the state closes them down. Like traditionally, that's always they will be open unless the state says like you must close. I think with the past few years, people hear about these laws and they're like, oh, abortion's not legal anymore. Like, can you even be open? And we would get those questions from like random people driving by. You know, they would just stop and ask us like, is this even legal? So I think that's going to be one of the big things is like battling that like misinformation and people's perceptions of like, is abortion even legal, you know? And so, yeah, even with SB 8, abortion is legal. They're still going to be trying to provide services. Abortion funds are going to be trying to like help people as much as possible. Even if they have to send people out of state, you know, they are there, like they are prepared for that. And so, yeah, I think Whole Women's Health is just kind of, I know they're going to fight it, of course, right? And abortion funds are also going to fight it like legally. And so, yeah, we just kind of have to wait and see what how the state goes about it, what else they throw at us.
Thank you, Melissa. You know, there are no words, right? There's no words to describe just what's going on and just how contentious this is and how it's always been. And you know, unfortunately, you know, it continues to be. But really, really grateful for all of our collective work here. And the other question from the audience says, congrats on the film. What are the best ways for us to get involved with spreading the word about the film and or support future screenings? So I think this question's for like Maya and Leah.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll all plug in here, but you know, I think, and hopefully my mom wasn't the one who asked. I'm just kidding. I don't think she's on this. But so our film right now, we're really excited. We're running a robust impact campaign, which means that we're going to take this film to as many places that will have the resources and as many people that will have us and screen this film all over the country, virtually and in person. And so we're working with Picture Motion and Pieces Loud and Policy in Focus right now. And we are actively fundraising for the impact campaign because, you know, how incredible it is to have, you know, folks like Denise and Mel who are in our film to be part of these conversations. And that, you know, of course, costs money to get everyone to travel to a certain location. So stuff like that, from logistics to just resource building and planning to get the word out. As you know, there's many pieces of legislation happening right now. And so the more that we can share this film with everyone, also have these tough dialogues and conversations. We do want people to talk across the aisle. That's why we made this film. We want people to be able to understand the humanity in each other and also realize the importance of what choice means, regardless of how you feel religiously and politically. And so I think just having those safe spaces and dialogues to have that conversation is important to us. And I'm going to let Maya, Mel, and Denise take it from here.
I think something else we really do want to mention is the fact that we will be on POV too in April 2022. So that is part of PBS. So if you really love the film, please tell people that that's also a place that they can see the film. And we're so excited that it will be broadcast nationally across the US. So that will be, we don't have the exact date yet, but I know it's April 2022 is the date that it should be streaming. So we'll be sure to update audiences about that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so excited for my family members and my friends to see it. You know, I've the first time I saw it, I just, yeah, it still processing like the magnitude of the effects it had on me. And so so excited to share this with our community and with other communities across the country and the world. So I think we have one more, we have time for one more question. And thank you all so much. This is the first time I moderated a panel, and I'm very awkward, so I appreciate everybody's flexibility and for being here with us for this conversation. But the last question that I have is for Melissa, Denise, Maya, and Leah. And that is, if you all could share one call to action for the audience around fighting for reproductive justice, what would it be? What would your ask be of folks?
I can start. I mean, I think we've been saying it a lot, but I think, again, it is like, I want to reiterate that it's so important to get involved in local orgs and give back as much as you can, and really just look to, work that's already been going on and how you can support that. I think sometimes that often happens, and even as filmmakers, Leah and myself are not from the border, so it was very much an honor for us to be able to, build trust and relationships with organizers like Janice and Mal and Denny, and relationships with Ray and Mercedes. But so we really learned so much when we were like going in this community, right? And something that we really led with was like, what are stories you feel like aren't being shared, or what stories do you feel like are being misrepresented or ignored? And a lot of people were like, wow, no one's ever asked me that before, right? Because I think a lot of what happens is like reporters come in, they're searching for a certain story and they think they're the expert. And they don't actually ask people like, hey, why don't you share with us like things that are really important to you that need to be told? So I would say that like really look around and see what's already being done. If you want to be, or if you're a filmmaker and want to be sharing stories like this, also be wary of your presence. And make sure that you're really asking the community what they want and what they need. And I think a big thing is like, most likely if you have an idea of, you're like, see this film and you're all amped up and ready to go, like, and you start thinking that maybe you should form your own org, like chances are people have already been doing that type of work, right? There's like abortion funds set up. There's funds like your organization, Lauda, and STRJ, South Texas Reproductive Justice, that's really doing this great work. So it's so important to, look to them as a guidance, and see how you can get involved.
I was going to say the same thing as Maya, so I'm not going to be redundant. But just also, I guess, from a perspective of like having dialogue if it feels safe for you. And I think this film can be a non-confrontational way to ignite that dialogue. And perhaps that you can show this film to someone who maybe may benefit from hearing all of these different perspectives. And I always say, like, I like to make films where I know my very staunch, like, may she rest in peace, grandmother, who was very Catholic. I want her to come in and feel held watching this movie, and actually be able to take something away from it. So I do hope that in terms of the film, I hope that that's what people can do.
Thank you so much for that, Leah.
I think to add to that, what Maya and Leah said, especially get involved if you can, donate if you can. But adding on what Leah said, the engaging in dialogue is very important to me. A lot of our work is busting the stigma, being able to talk about abortion, say the word abortion, it's not a dirty word, it's not a bad word. I ask people to really take a step back first before you engage in that dialogue, to analyze your own feeling towards it. What we encounter a lot, especially here in the RGB community, is we hear oh yeah, I agree with people being able to get abortions if they need it, I just don't want it used as birth control. that is a very stigmatizing thing to say and an incorrect thing to say. Abortion is not birth control. And you don't realize the harm that you are doing to people, if they're listening to that they've had more than one abortion or even just one abortion. I ask people, first analyze your feeling towards it. Ask yourself also, do I know someone with an abortion? We know that about 1 in 4 people have had an abortion in their lives. So all of us know someone who has had an abortion. If you don't know, if you can't name a person that has had an abortion, ask yourself why. Why are you an unsafe person? And you're unsafe in the sense that the person who has had an abortion in their life didn't feel they were able to tell you and couldn't confide in you. And ask yourself why. Ask yourself, are you a safe person to come to? Are you a person that is willing to engage in open conversations, that are not judgmental? Do you understand what the ramifications of, not being able to access an abortion are? Do you also understand that even though Roe v. Wade, allows abortions to happen, do you understand that for a lot of us here, especially people of color, abortion is not accessible? We don't get it. It doesn't matter that it's legal. For a lot of us, we can't have it. It's not affordable. It's not attainable. Legality is a completely other story. It's not accessible. Do you realize that? So it's kind of, I ask people first, take a look at yourself, really, really step back and analyze what your feelings are about it. Who that has had one, if you yourself have had one, how do you feel about it? And then, engage in it, bust the stigma, make it okay to talk about it, because it is an okay thing to talk about it. There is nothing shameful. There's nothing irregular about it. It's not a rare occurrence. It's an everyday occurrence that many, many people need for different reasons. And so, treat it as such. Treat it as the regular thing, that we need. We do need abortions. People need abortions. People need all types of healthcare. Treat it as such. Don't treat it as a shameful thing. And that's how you kind of start to slowly, chip away at the wall, chip away at those bricks that people have, is by normalizing these conversations. Have these conversations out loud, not just in your home. Have them out loud. Talk them out with people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Denise.
Yeah, and I think everyone's already said pretty much what I wanted to say, but just to reach out to like the smaller orgs around you, like wherever you live, because the big organizations, they have the grants, they have like the big, fundraisers and everything. It's the smaller organizations that really need the support, and who, like, we had like a donation of like $5,000 a few years ago. We stretched that sucker out for like 2 or 3 years. Like, we can make it work on like no money, but it's just really hard. But yeah, so definitely reach out to the smaller organizations. Even it doesn't have to be financial. It could be, like volunteering your time, or just, sharing information. A couple weeks ago, my dining room table was like full of like birth control and condoms, like thousands of condoms. So yeah, like we could have used help, like packing, or, it's just like little things that it doesn't have to be financial. So yeah, just kind of like learn about who's in your area and what services they're offering, and just try to figure out how you can help, amplify that work.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And I completely agree with everything that was said, and yeah, everybody knows someone that has had an abortion, and everybody loves someone who has had an abortion, and the fight continues, and we will still continue fighting for reproductive justice, and breaking down stigma and sharing these narratives and our stories, because that is how change is going to happen. And so I am so excited and just honored to be here, and really encourage you all, if you all haven't seen On the Divide, to please watch it and share it with your loved ones, and to have these conversations about abortion access, and uplift local abortion funds and grassroots organizations in your community. Like Melissa said, not just financially, but also, if you are in that community and can lend a helping hand to pack things and to deliver things and to ship things, that is a huge help to organizations all over. I know definitely ours, and really resonated when you were talking about stretching that $5,000. Yes. It's like we're magicians that can make magic happen and stretch these funds to do this really important work. So thank you all so much for joining us this evening. This was a beautiful conversation, and just huge thanks to our guests, and to the Repro Film Fest folks too for putting this together, making this happen, and to our audience for watching and for being open to hearing about our experiences and being interested in learning more, and for asking such meaningful questions. We really appreciate you all, and hope everyone has a beautiful and safe evening. And thank you so much for joining us.